After a few minutes of studying, your eyes start to close. You start to feel sleepy. You tried everything to stay awake. You tried slapping your face. You tried splashing water on your face. You tried dipping your feet in cold water. You tried standing up and walking around the room, but nothing actually worked. And you ended up falling asleep at your desk and woke up annoyed, groggy, because you did not study as planned. Again. Now here is what nobody told you. Sleepiness while studying is not a motivation problem. It is not a laziness problem. It is not a discipline problem. It is a biological timing problem. Your body has a clock. That clock decides when you are alert and when you shut down. And if you are studying when that clock says sleep, no amount of face slapping is going to save you. You are fighting your own biology, and biology does not lose. In this video, I am going to explain exactly why your brain shuts down every time you open a textbook, and a method that will stop it for good. Not by forcing yourself to stay awake, by understanding the two systems inside your body that control every second of alertness you have ever felt, and then using them instead of fighting them. Section 1. The two systems you have never been taught. Here is a question nobody asks in any study tips video. Why does your brain fall asleep specifically when you study? You can watch 3 hours of reels without blinking. You can game until 2 a.m. without a single yawn. But the moment you open your notes, within 15 minutes, your eyelids weigh 10 kilograms. That is not random. That is not a coincidence. That is your brain telling you something very specific, and you have been ignoring it your entire academic life. There are two systems that control when you feel awake and when you feel asleep. The first is your circadian rhythm. The second is melatonin. Every student who has ever fallen asleep on a textbook did so because they did not understand how these two systems interact. And once you understand it, you will never fight sleepiness the same way again. Your circadian rhythm is a 24-hour internal biological clock. It lives in a tiny region of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This clock does not care about your exam schedule. It does not care about your syllabus. It regulates one thing: when you are alert and when you shut down. And it follows one primary signal: light. When light enters your eyes, your circadian rhythm reads it as daytime. It pushes your alertness to its peak. This peak happens typically between 6 a.m. and 12 p.m. During this window, your brain is running at maximum capacity. Attention is high. Cognitive function is sharp. Focus comes naturally. You could study for hours during this window, and your brain would cooperate because your circadian rhythm is telling every cell in your body that this is go time. Now here is the second system: melatonin. Melatonin is the hormone that signals your brain to sleep, and it has an inverse relationship with your circadian rhythm. They work like a seesaw. When your circadian rhythm is at its peak, melatonin is at its lowest. That is why you feel wide awake in the morning. And when your circadian rhythm dips, which happens in the late afternoon and accelerates at night, melatonin rises. Your brain receives the signal. Time to sleep. Eyelids get heavy. Attention collapses. Focus disappears. This is not weakness. This is chemistry. And here is the part that should change how you plan every single study session from today. If you are studying when your melatonin is high and your circadian rhythm is in a dip, you will feel sleepy. It does not matter how much coffee you drink. It does not matter how many times you splash water on your face. You are asking your brain to perform while it is chemically shutting down. That is not a fair fight. That is a guaranteed loss. But here is what makes this worse for students specifically. Most of you have altered these two systems without even knowing it. And that alteration is the real reason you feel sleepy at the wrong times. Section 2. The alteration nobody warned you about. Here is where the damage happens, and it is happening to almost every student reading this right now. Sleep deprivation. Not the kind where you stay awake for 48 hours. The slow, invisible kind. The kind where you consistently sleep 5 or 6 hours instead of 7 to 9. The kind where you study at 1 a.m. because the hostel is quiet and then drag yourself through the next day feeling like your brain is wrapped in cotton. Here is what sleep deprivation actually does to your circadian rhythm. When you force yourself to stay awake at night, studying under artificial light, your circadian rhythm receives a contradictory signal. The light from your screen and your room tells your brain it is still daytime, so your brain suppresses melatonin to keep you alert. You think this is working. You think you are being productive, but you are borrowing, and the debt comes due the next morning. Because you suppressed melatonin at night when it was supposed to be high, your body pushes that melatonin into the morning and afternoon. So now you feel sleepy at 10 a.m. You feel sleepy at 2 p.m. You feel sleepy during the exact hours when your circadian rhythm should be at its peak. You did not become a lazy person overnight. You altered your biological clock by studying when you were supposed to sleep, and now your peak alertness window has shifted to the wrong time. This is the cycle that traps students, and nobody explains it. You study at night because it feels productive. You sleep late. You wake up groggy. You feel sleepy during the day. You cannot study during the day because you are exhausted. So you wait until night again, and the cycle deepens. You are not sleeping when you should study, and you are not studying when you should be alert. You have flipped your entire biological system backwards and then blamed yourself for being lazy. The fix is not complicated, but it requires you to stop romanticizing late-night study sessions. Sleep 7 to 9 hours, consistently, not 5 hours on weekdays and 12 on Sunday. Consistently. When you give your brain 7 to 9 hours of rest at night, your circadian rhythm resets. Melatonin goes back to where it belongs, high at night, low in the morning. And your peak alertness window returns to the morning, exactly when you should be studying. You are not fixing a motivation problem. You are fixing a timing problem, and timing is everything. Section 3. The environment you never fixed. Now here is the part most students ignore entirely. Even if your circadian rhythm is correct and your sleep hours are right, your environment can sabotage everything. The first environmental factor is light. This is the one most students get wrong without knowing it. If you study in a dim room, low light, curtains drawn, just the laptop screen glowing in the dark, your brain reads that as nighttime. Your circadian rhythm dips, melatonin starts rising, and within 20 minutes you are fighting to keep your eyes open. Not because the material is boring, because your brain received a signal that it is time to sleep. When you study, you need bright light, full room light, natural light if possible. Open the curtains, turn on every light in the room. The light entering your eyes is the single strongest signal your circadian rhythm uses to determine alertness. A dim room at 10 a.m. will make you sleepier than a bright room at 10 p.m. That is how powerful light is in controlling your biological clock. The second factor is what you eat. When you consume a large meal or a high-sugar meal before studying, your body diverts energy to digestion. Blood sugar spikes and then crashes. That crash produces sluggishness, reduced alertness, and the heavy-eyed feeling that makes your textbook look like a pillow. Reduce sugar intake before study sessions. Eat lighter. Drink water. Hydration keeps your brain functioning at its baseline. Dehydration, even mild dehydration, produces fatigue that mimics sleepiness. Most students reach for coffee when they should be reaching for a glass of water. The third factor is the one hiding in plain sight: temperature. A warm room makes you drowsy. Your body associates warmth with rest. If your study space is warm, stuffy, and enclosed, your brain interprets it as a sleep environment. Keep the room slightly cool. Open a window. Let air move. A cool environment keeps your nervous system alert. You have been blaming your brain for shutting down. But look at the room you are studying in. Dim light, heavy meal in your stomach, warm room, no water. Your brain did not betray you. You built a sleep chamber and expected it to function as a study room. Section 4. The method that actually keeps you awake. Now here is the final piece. And this is the one that makes everything else work. Even if your circadian rhythm is right, your sleep is right, your environment is right, there is one thing that will put you to sleep faster than anything else: boredom. When you engage in passive reading, just running your eyes across the page without interacting with the material, your brain classifies the activity as monotonous. And the brain has a very specific response to monotony. It shuts down. Not because the material is not important, because the activity does not demand enough engagement to justify staying alert. Think about why you never fall asleep while gaming. It is not because games are more important than your textbook. It is because games require constant input, decisions, reactions, predictions. Your brain stays alert because the activity demands it. Your study method needs to create that same demand, not through entertainment, through engagement. Stop rereading. Start questioning. Every paragraph you read, stop and ask yourself one question about it. Write a one-line summary in your own words. Close the book and try to recall what you just read. Quiz yourself. Argue with the material. Draw a diagram. Explain it out loud to an empty room. This is called active recall, and it is the single most effective technique against study sleepiness because it forces your brain to participate instead of spectate. A spectating brain shuts down. A participating brain stays alert. That is the difference between falling asleep on page 3 and studying for 2 hours without a single yawn. The method is not one trick. It is the combination of all four. Fix your sleep to reset your circadian rhythm. Fix your timing to study during your biological peak. Fix your environment to stop sending sleep signals. And fix your method to keep your brain engaged. Here is what nobody tells you. You were never a sleepy student. You were a student studying at the wrong time, in the wrong environment, with the wrong method, on the wrong amount of sleep. Fix those 4 things and the sleepiness does not get defeated. It disappears. Because it was never the enemy, it was the signal. And the signal was always telling you the same thing. You are not lazy, you are just out of sync. Get back in sync, and your brain will do exactly what it was built to do. Stay awake, stay sharp, and learn.